everyone, my name is Keely. Welcome to my channel. Welcome back if you've been here before. Today I'm going to talk about all the books that I read in the month of June. So I managed to read 13 books in June, resulting in 4,529 pages with an average rating of 3.77, which isn't horrible, and I'm overall really pleased with my reading. So as always, I'm going to talk about these books in the order that I read them in. The first book I read in June was Two Sides to Every Murder by Danielle Valentine. I had an e-art copy of this from NetGalley, and this is Danielle Valentine's newest young adult thriller. I previously read a YA thriller from her and absolutely loved it, and this one was no different. So the setting for this book takes place at a camp called Camp Lost Lake, and decades ago there was a gruesome murder that happened there, and we actually follow two separate characters who are making their way back to the camp to finally figure out what happened the night of the murders. So first we follow Olivia, and Olivia has always lived like this perfect life despite being born in the midst of that murder. So she was born at Camp Lost Lake the night of the murders, and it was horrible, gruesome, and grisly, and everyone knows she was born during that time until one day she uncovers a secret that the person she has called her father her whole life isn't actually her dad. So she is returning back to the camp to figure out the mystery of who her dad really is. Second, we follow Reagan, who has been on the run her entire life because her mother is the alleged murderer of Camp Lost Lake. So she has been on the run her whole life with her mother, and she believes that her mother is completely innocent, so she is going back to the camp to finally clear her mother's name. So as Reagan and Olivia are both there at this camp, uncovering decades-old secrets, somebody is desperate to keep these secrets hidden. This book was so fast-paced and thrilling. Danielle Valentine really knows how to write a young adult thriller that just hooks you in and you just want to unravel all of the secrets with the characters. I absolutely loved the gruesomeness of this, but also the fast-paced thrillingness of it as well. I also really loved the characters in this story, and you find out secrets until the very end, which made it that much more engaging. I also love a book about cold cases, and this is what that one was, and I give this one 5 stars. I highly recommend this. The next 5 books I read in my Spinner Wheel Chooses What I Read vlog, so I'm not going to go too in-depth with these, but if you want to know more of my in-depth thoughts, then definitely go check that vlog out. The first book I read in that video was At First Sight by Olivia Dade. So we follow this woman named Athena, and she is engaged to a man named Johnny. But Johnny's brother, Matthew, convinces Johnny to call off the engagement, leaving Athena basically jobless and homeless and moving to a new state, knowing nobody. Now, right beside Johnny's house is a spite house, and Johnny always wanted to buy this spite house so he can expand his own house, and Athena actually bought the spite house as a wedding present to Johnny. Now that they're no longer getting married, Athena owns this spite house, and she has no choice but to move in right next to her ex-fiance. And on the other side is her ex-fiance's brother, Matthew, who is the reason their engagement no longer exists. So I had a lot of issues with this one. It just did not work for me, unfortunately, because this book is beautiful, and this book also has great depression and fat representation, and I really liked how that was done, but that was the only redeeming quality for me. I really did not like Athena and Matthew as individuals or a couple. I did not sense any connection between them two, and I also thought it was kind of messed up what they were doing to Johnny and how everything was handled and how everything and everyone reacted to the whole situation. I also, ironically enough, really related to Athena, but she is 10 years older than me, so a lot of her reactions to things and how she treated people was really immature, and honestly, I didn't really like her. And I was like, what does that say about myself if I relate to her and I don't like her? But I did not like this one overall, and I ended up giving it 2 stars. Next, I read Chosen Ones by Veronica Roth, and this is basically a superhero story where we follow 5 different Chosen Ones. 10 years ago when they were teenagers, they defeated the Dark One and kind of saved the world. Now it is 10 years later at a celebration, and they are starting to realize maybe the Dark One isn't as gone as they originally thought. So the first half of this book really captivated me. I was really intrigued. I like the whole superhero aspect, but the main girl we follow in here is Sloane, and Sloane is a certified anti-hero. She even says she's an anti-hero, and I just don't get that. I don't like her. She is so unlikable. She's not the worst character I've ever read, but I hated her and I never want to see her again. I just didn't like her, so it was really hard to follow her throughout the whole story, and by the end of it I found myself not even caring about any of the characters, what happened with them, or the Dark One, or any of the people, so I gave this one 2 stars as well. So after two stars in a row, I was really nervous, especially when the wheel picked for me Shadow Study by Maria V. Schneider. This is book 4/7 in the Poison Study series and the Chronicles of Ixia. There's a lot of books in this and you do need to read them in order, so I can't really exactly tell you what this one is about because it is so far in the series, but the beginning of the series as a whole follows Yelena, and Yelena is about to be executed for murder when she is taken from death row and said, "You are going to be the new poison taster of the commander." And through all that, she meets Valak. Now, this book in particular, once again, follows Yelena and Valak and all the craziness that they get up to, because these kids cannot breathe. They cannot breathe for 1 second because people are constantly trying to kill them. And this series as a whole, Chronicles of Ixia, is broken up into 3 different trilogies. I loved the first trilogy. I hated the second one, so I was really confused if I wanted to continue or not, but the wheel spoke for me, so I decided to continue, and I'm really glad that I did because I just love following Yelena and Valak so much. I love them as characters. The magic system in here is really fascinating. My only complaint is that Yelena and Valak are separated for too long. Why are they always separated? I just want them together. But we broke my 2-star curse and I gave this one 4 stars. Next, I read Carry On by Rainbow Rowell, and I also was not quite excited to pick this one up, but this one is kind of a play on Fangirl by Rainbow Rowell. So if you've read that one, the main character in that book writes a fan fiction, and this book is that fan fiction. So we follow Simon Snow and his roommate Baz, who is allegedly a vampire, and they are mortal enemies. Simon Snow is the chosen one, and he is said to be the worst chosen one in history because he has so much power and he can't control it at all. And Simon and Baz know that one day when school is over, they are going to have to kill each other off, and so they're constantly like kind of a Draco and Harry situation here, except these 2 are roommates and they fall in love, and I just love it so much. The idea of the vampires in here is really great, and throughout the whole book too, they have to fight the insidious humdrum, which is essentially taking magic away from people, and so they're having to fight this big bad where Simon can't control his powers. Baz hates Simon, but they might have to work together to defeat this evil. I will say the magic in here and the spells is completely ridiculous, and I wish it wasn't that way, but I was completely hooked into this book. I love the characters. This is actually a multiple point of view, so we follow several of the characters, and it was just so great. Simon also has a great relationship with his best friend, and I actually, surprisingly, gave this one 5 stars. I can't stop thinking about it, and it is a trilogy. I have questions, and I can't wait to continue. The final book I read for that vlog was Forget Me Not by Julie Soto, and this is the Afterlight Illumicrate edition, and it is one of the worst covers I've ever seen. I wish they had done this as the cover. So this book follows Amma and Elliot, and they have history. They used to date and something happened between them, and that's all we know. And Amma actually runs a wedding business, and it's a small wedding business until one day she basically gets her dream client. A very famous influencer is now engaged, and they want Amma to do their wedding, and she is thinking, this is my big break. But the catch is the couple wants Elliot to be their florist. Yes, that's right. Elliot owns a flower shop and is a florist. And Amma is sitting here thinking, I can't work with Elliot. I cannot do that. And so throughout the story, we're getting the present timeline as well as the past with Amma and Elliot's relationship and what led to the breakdown of that. I really enjoyed this. I believe this is Julie Soto's debut, and I am so impressed. Her next book is actually coming out like next week or something, I think, and I can't wait to read that one as well. This was so cute. The wedding talk was fun. However, I hate weddings, and so I think I got bored of that after a while, but Elliot's floral shop, I loved hearing about all of that, and he has all these tattoos, and it was so nice throughout the book to hear what each tattoo really meant to him. However, in the past timeline, as we find out more, I really hated how Amma treated Elliot in particular. Because of that, I gave this one 4 stars and not quite a 5, but Julie Soto is potentially a new favorite author that I look forward to all of her releases. Next, I read Half-Blood by Jennifer L. Armentrout. This is book 1 in the Covenant series, and we follow teenager Alex, who for the past several years has been on the run with her mother. Several years ago, they left what is called the Covenant, which is where the community of half-bloods and purebloods all live and go to school and train and work, and they just left suddenly. Alex has no idea why her mom took her away from there, but one day Alex's mother is killed by the demons that they are running from, so Alex is forced to be taken back to the Covenant, and she is given 2 options. She can either become a servant because she is a half-blood, or she could train 10 times harder to try to catch up with the rest of her class to be a fighter against these demons. Now this seems like an easy choice for her, but things get a little bit more complicated when pureblood Aiden volunteers to help train her. Now half-bloods and purebloods are off limits. They are strict rules against these two being together, but the attraction between these two starts arising, and as she is training more and more, Alex finds out the secret of why her mother ran away with her in the first place. So this book overall was just really fun. If you have read Vampire Academy, this is that. Like, almost exactly this is that. Alex is Rose, especially in the first book, very, very much Rose, and Aiden is very, very much Dimitri. There's also, just like in Vampire Academy, a questionable age gap romance in this, and also the off-limits romance, relationship, and the school as a whole, very much Vampire Academy coded. But I didn't mind that. I love Vampire Academy, and so this was fun too. I actually tried reading this a few months ago and DNF'd it, and I'm glad I decided to pick it back up because it was re-released in these beautiful editions, and I was like, I want that, but I need to make sure I love it. And I did. I had so much fun reading this, and I cannot wait to continue the series. I gave this one 3 stars. Next, I read Done and Dusted by Lila Sage, and I picked this up on a whim because I am not into cowboys, but the season of The Amazing Race I was watching, my favorite team were certified cowboys, and I was like, okay, if I'm ever gonna read a cowboy romance, it is now because my defenses were down, and I'm so glad I picked this up. So we follow a young woman named Clementine. She goes by Emmy, and she left her small Wyoming cowboy town to go to college, and she is actually a really famous barrel racer, and she has loved being outside of her town, but a really bad accident with her horse happens, and so she decides to move back home with her father and all of her brothers, and nobody really knows why she's coming back. They are all surprised. She doesn't tell them she's coming, she just moves back, and she ends up running into her brother's best friend, Luke. Now, Luke has basically grown up with the Ryder family, and like I said, is her brother's best friend, and Luke quickly realizes he has this attraction to Emmy, and it feels wrong because he knows that his best friend would not be happy about it. But as Emmy is trying to come to terms with this accident and get over this fear that she now has, she confides in Luke about what happened, and Luke kind of helps her literally get back on the horse, and because of this, they might start falling in love. I love this book so much. The way Luke treats Emmy is so good, and he's so patient and gentle with her, and he understands her fear and her hesitation riding horses again and getting over this major accident that happened. I also love the family dynamic in here, all of her brothers. I cannot wait to see all of the love stories that happen in this series. The spicy scenes were also fantastic. This is one of my new favorite romances of all time, and I gave it 5 stars, and maybe cowboys might be my thing. Next, I randomly decided to pick up Gallant by V.E. Schwab, and this one follows a young girl named Olivia who has grown up in a little girl's home her whole life. All she has with her is her mother's journal, and she reads it until she memorizes it every single night. And she's a little weird, she's a little odd, she might see some ghosts and some spirits, and one of the only things that her mother wrote down in the journal is, "You will be safe as long as you never return to Gallant." One day, Olivia's home gets a letter calling her back home to Gallant, where she goes, and it unravels from there. Now, I really cannot say much about this book. All I know is that whatever it was, whatever happened, completely worked for me. The vibes, the atmosphere, they were immaculate. And I have heard such negative reviews about this, but I really enjoyed Olivia and the journey we went on and how dark and mysterious everything was. And this was just read at the perfect time. I don't know. I really can't explain why I liked it so much, but I gave it 5 stars. Next, I decided to pick up another cowboy romance, and I went with the one everyone loves, and that is Flawless by Elsie Silver. This is book 1 in the Chestnut Springs series. So we follow a woman named Summer who works with her father, Kit. Now, Kit is kind of like a talent agent, and he has this bull rider under him that is signed under his label that is very much in trouble right now. So this bull rider's name is Rhett, and because he is under such scandal, they are trying to figure out how he is going to keep all of his sponsorships when Kit says, Summer, you are going to stay with Rhett, make sure he doesn't get in trouble, you're going to live with him, you're going to basically babysit him and make sure he stays in line. Now, of course, this is forced proximity. You can kind of see what's going to happen there. Rhett also lives on a ranch and has several brothers, a father, just like Done and Dusted. However, this one was done so poorly. I really did not like this one. Also, everyone in this family curses all the time. Why do they all have to cuss so much? Like, I usually don't get bothered with cussing, but in this book, for some reason, it just bothered me so much. I'm like, really? Your vocabulary is so limited, you can't think of any other words? I didn't really care for Summer and Rhett. I mean, there were some moments where I was like, oh, that's cute. But overall, I was like, I just don't like this. Something about it doesn't work for me. Overall, this book just really did not click with me. I found myself rolling my eyes several times, and I ended up giving it 2 stars. Next, I read Horror Movie by Paul Tremblay, and this is a play on cursed films. And so this book follows a cast of people who in 1993 were making this horror film that was actually never released. Although it was never released, 3 scenes of the movie were, and so now it has this cult following decades later, and the only surviving cast member is the thin kid from the original movie. Now this movie is getting a remake, and so they call up the thin kid to kind of have him help them out and maybe be in the remake as well. But with the thin kid helping them out, secrets are starting to be unraveled, and people might truly see what happened back in 1993. So honestly, I almost DNF'd this book like 3 or 4 times when I was reading it, but I was on vacation and it was short, so I was like, I'm just gonna get through it. I have an arc, might as well write a review, and this writing was just so difficult for me to get into. Paul Tremblay, this is his 2nd book I've read from him, and I didn't like the 1st book I read from him either, so maybe it's not me, it's him. But this one, again, just did not work for me. It took me so long to get into it, and by the time I did, the payoff was just way too late, and I found myself confused and wondering how things were happening the way they were. However, throughout this novel, the script from 1993 is put into it, and I really enjoyed following the script, but like I said, it took me a little bit to understand and to catch up what was going on, so unfortunately I gave this one 2 stars. Next, I randomly decided to read Counting the Cost by Jill Duggar. If you don't know, Jill Duggar is the 2nd oldest daughter in the Duggar family. Now, I grew up watching this show, and when I was younger, I always thought it was cool to see a Christian family on TV until as I got older and I realized that it was more of a cult and not Christianity, and how wild things were within the family. And listening to Jill's account of things was heartbreaking, and I'm just so thankful and glad she had the courage to tell her side of the story. There was even a part in here at the end where I was like, like I was in the car going down the mountains and I was like, and I had to pause it and tell my family what had just happened, because it was, oh, like mic drop. Jill did that. She is so strong. She is so awesome, and I love the platform she has now. I also love that despite so much religious trauma, she is still close to Jesus and God, and I love her whole story, and I gave it 5 stars. And the last book I read in June, I actually picked up on my vacation, and that is Subpar Parks by Amber Sher. And this is actually kind of a humorous nonfiction. So what Amber Sher did was she took 1-star reviews from different national parks, and she proved why they are wrong. You know, like some of these 1 stars don't make sense. Like at Bryce Canyon, they said 2 orange, 2 spiky, 1 star. At Glacier National Park, they said 2 cold for me, 1 star. So she also illustrates, so her illustrations throughout this book are just really stunning, and I love the different national parks she talks about. If you've never been to a national park, you should definitely go. I have been to dozens of national parks, and it's just interesting how some people would be like, oh, there's nothing to see there. And it's literally surrounded by like mountains and trees and like beautiful animals and things like that. So it's just funny that she took these 1-star reviews to put in a positive light instead, and I really enjoyed this one. I gave it 5 stars. So those are all the books that I read in the month of June. Let me know down below your favorite book of the month. If you have made it this far, go ahead and leave the umbrella emoji. But that is it for this video. Thank you so much for watching. As always, all my social media links will be down below, and I will see you next time. Bye!